Our first speaker is Suzanne Saulnier from LOFT Community Services. Suzanne is a registered social worker and a director of the Behavioral Support Services mobile support teams at LOFT Community Services. There are over 55 staff supporting 46 long-term care homes and community residents in the Central Local Health Integration Network, the most populous and diverse LHIN in the province of Ontario. The behavioral support teams are a result of a new provincial initiative launched in 2012 to support older adults with challenging behaviors to remain safely in their home. Please, Suzanne. And I know that Suzanne has brought some guests along too.
And I think for people who have just come in and don't have a seat, there's other handouts.
It's actually, there are some handouts at the front, which I can hand out during the session.
Well, good morning, everyone. I did actually bring along some very special guests. So I wanted to introduce Jasmine Cantos, who's an RPM on the Central Mobile Support Team. And then I have Amelia Prasad, who's the social worker at Leisure World Richmond Hill. And in the audience, I just wanted to give a little introduction to Patty Reed. Patty Reed is the BSO program manager for the Central LHIN, who's in partnership with LOFT Community Services from Mackenzie Health. So we're here to talk about making moves magnificent, best practices in supporting transitions. Oh, I can't go backwards, right? So you missed the overview of the day, but that's okay. So BSO, I'm sure everybody is quite aware of the term Behavioral Supports Ontario. Truly what it is, it's a catalyst for system redesign. It's person-centered, it supports safety for all, and it really is founded on the premise that we believe in every single day that behavior has meaning. So it reflects changes in the person and his or her interactions with their environment. So the mobile support teams, as the moderator for today, it is a provincial initiative where the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care invested $40 million into the province of Ontario for the resource to create mobile support teams. They're different in every single LHIN. Every LHIN kind of had a plan in place in terms of what to do with their dollars. So I am very pleased to say that in the Central LHIN, we have both a long-term care home mobile support team and we have a community-based team. Obviously, these teams are evidence-based, person-centered, and we're very, very collaborative. So why do we want to support transitions into long-term care? I'm sure everybody knows these stats, so I'm not going to go over them point by point, but we all are seeing a very, very dramatic increase in the number of residents moving into long-term care with responsive behaviors. And in the Central LHIN alone, we're going to see the largest increase in the population size and the number of aged of all the LHINs over the next 20 years. So there's going to be obviously more and more transitions into long-term care. So this is just really quickly an overview of the BSS in the Central LHIN. So Mackenzie Health is the operational lead, and then LOFT Community Services is the lead organization for the mobile support teams. We have 3 teams based on the geography of the Central LHIN, and we support 46 long-term care homes. That's over 7,000 beds. And it just shows a breakup of the staffing on each of the teams. So as you can well see, the majority of the dollars did go into long-term care. However, we do, as I said, have a community team that supports older adults and seniors that live anywhere except long-term care. So the team functions, we're really timely. We're not a crisis service, but we're a timely support in regards to reducing risk and improving safety of older adults and caregivers in the community and in long-term care. We're very collaborative, so we work with the long-term care home staff, we work with families, the physicians, we work with the PRCs, and any other geriatric mental health outreach teams that are involved. and to really come up with that single plan of care for the resident, for the family, et cetera, et cetera. The difference with our teams too is we're very hands-on. So we're not a consultation service, we're a hands-on service. We do direct support, and then we do coaching and peer mentoring for the caregivers both in the community and long-term care. We also have an emergency crisis consultation telephone service and advice that's available. So I'm not going to go through this one. It just shows you again kind of the makeup of the individual teams. So to be eligible for the transitional services, you have to obviously be an older adult with or at risk for responsive behavior due to dementia, mental health, addictions, or other neurological conditions, and obviously deemed eligible for long-term care placement by the CCAC. So when we first started up the service, the mobile support teams, we were actually looking at transitions because in the Central Lynn, it was a huge gap in service in terms of supporting individuals transitioning. And as I said, when we first started up the service, we really started looking at how many different transitions could there be. So this actually shows the points of transitions and the points that the mobile team supports in. We're a really new service. The long-term care component hasn't even been in the homes for 2 years yet. But as you can see, from kind of the start of service until the end of March 31st, 2013, we actually did a total of 93 transitions already. And then this just shows some of the statistics in regards, again, to services. So since June 2012, which we actually started up, but we weren't in the homes until actually August, until the end of last month, we've had 819 referrals. With that, there's been 771 individuals in long-term care that we've supported. And as I said, we did 93 transitions. Just looks at some of, again, the primary diagnosis, the secondary diagnosis, which we're all very, very familiar with. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine, who's going to do the case scenario, and then we're going to get into, obviously, the challenge and the successes in terms of supporting with transitions.
Okay. Hi, Jasmine. I'm just here to present John. As the behavioral support services, we get to know the person first and foremost. Because as you know, each person with dementia is different when it comes to offering support. Different things are helpful for different people. John was a 61-year-old male. He immigrated from South America 10 years ago, married with 3 children, all in university. He had a part-time job in the university as a professor teaching finance, and then worked as a manager in the bank. According to his wife, his status was very high in his home country. 5 years ago, he was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. His responsive behaviors include intrusive to other residents at meals. For example, eating other people's food if they haven't completed it, seeing things that he didn't have on his own plate and wanting it. Very difficult to redirect, jumping over the servery because he saw something that he wanted, so food, utensils. Taking papers off of the nurse's station. Social and sexual disinhibition. When he sat down, he automatically unbuttoned his pants and buckled his belt. And he felt most comfortable like this. It was nothing sexual. He was not able to participate in social activities due to the language barrier and lack of focus. OCD behavior. Gathering hairs wherever he could find them, picking out spices from food and arranging them in piles. In turn, we try to get the LTC staff to look at the person and not just focus on the responsive behaviors, as we are firm believers in all behaviors have meaning. So the behavioral support staff, we received a referral from the specialized behavioral support unit to meet client, as he was currently on a waiting list for a long-term care facility in the Central Inn. However, there was no exact date of discharge noted. The BSS staff went to go see the client in his element. We went into his room, went into the dining room, the communal television room, saw how he interacted with other clients. Went into his room and saw how things were in their specific spot. Clothes were in plastic bags because co-residents would go in his room and take his clothes from his closet. Little pieces of papers were strategically placed in the corner of his bedside table. We witnessed his interactions with a bald man who was seated in the television room. He put hairs on his head. Cleaning staff had moved the client's drink onto a table to clean the surrounding areas. the client got agitated because he couldn't find them, and then you put him back into its original spot. We noted that the client enjoyed doing his Sudokus and did not really interact with other co-residents in the unit. So now to the day that he got admitted to the long-term care facility. The BSS staff were with him that same day. We discussed the client's unique responsive behaviors and reviewed the tip sheet that the behavioral unit had supplied, which was very helpful as they broke it down by ADLs, so washing, grooming, dressing, toileting, eating, communications, behaviors, and recreation. We assisted the long-term care staff to orient to specific to environmental needs. We met with the environmental staff. Due to his OCD behavior, we suggested that they didn't tidy the objects on top or inside his closet, drawers, or bedside table, as he'll place things there in a particular fashion. And if it gets moved around or thrown out, he'll then get anxious and try to find these objects, because what we may perceive as non-valuable to us may be valuable to him. We also met with the dietitian, because he was constantly snacking and looking for food. And when people wouldn't give him food, he'd get really agitated. So the dietitian ended up doubling his portion. Because of his strong obsession with hair, we suggested for the staff to put their hair in a ponytail to decrease the chances of him touching your hair if you have personal space problems. As well, don't attempt to shave or cut his hair, because he does have that obsession with his hair. And the long-term care staff allowed him to wear a hat because he was scared that he was going to lose his hair. We were told that somebody told him a while back, who was bald, that the reason he lost his hair was due to the Canadian weather. And I know that not every long-term care facility lets you wear a hat in the home. It was observed that he was very aware of times that meals and nourishment was served. He would try to open the dining room doors and look for snacks. We encouraged the home to have snacks on hand by the nurse's station. As well, the hours of mealtime, nourishment times were placed outside the dining room and in his room. We also suggested not to leave food or paper out in clear view, as he tends to want to take them for himself. Currently, the home puts their charts in their back room, and the nurse's station is free of loose papers, and food are appropriately put away. We tried giving him plastic utensils because he was hoarding cutlery and trying to open the dining room doors with a fork. Because we gave him plastic utensils, he then tried to take away his table mate's utensils, as he didn't like that this setup was different. He had a hard time sitting in the dining room waiting for his food, to the point that he would jump over the servery so that he could retrieve his meal. Now the staff serve him first at meals.
Hi, my name is Amelia Prasad, and I'm the social worker at Leisure World Richmond Hill, where John is now residing. So just in collaboration with the BSS team, I just wanted to reiterate that their involvement from the beginning before admission was very helpful and very grateful to the home. So from our side of things, CCAC had advised us that BSS was involved in his care, which we were really happy to hear about, because our team and our staff we were worried that we wouldn't be able to meet his needs, and we don't know what would have happened to him if he came into our home and if we would not be able to meet the care needs he had. So BSS communicated with the team, including management, about his behaviors, and then together with the team and our staff, strategies and interventions were put in place and into the care plan for all staff to follow. We provided a one-to-one staff on our end so that someone was always constantly with him, watching over and observing, especially in the first few weeks of adjustment and transition. And then due to all this, due to all the interventions and strategies that were put into place, we were able finally to remove the one-to-one as the staff became proactive in knowing his behaviors and what he was looking for. We were able to prevent hospitalization. There was no 911 calls or Form 1s done. And now John is actually able to socialize with other residents in that area.
Okay, so I'm going to be dealing with the challenges. So within the tight timelines with placement admission process, his admission to long-term care facility happened so quickly that we didn't get enough notice. I believe we had 2 days. So we tried to gather as much support as possible for the home. Lack of awareness of transitional support with mobile support teams available to support someone with responsive behaviors. As mentioned before, the BSS teams are available in aiding with transition, so unit to unit, a client sharing a private room going into a semi-private room, etc. Ability to meet with the family in advance of placement. There was not enough time, like I said, with the family in advance of placement. However, when he was at Leisure World, we would meet with them on a weekly basis. Communicating clear roles and responsibilities of the BSS MST and the staff of the long-term care home to all staff and family. At times, the LTC staff did not understand why we would observe, but observation leads us to figuring out what the triggers are. At times, we were mistaken for a one-to-one private caregiver, which led to expectations from the LTC staff. Sometimes 8 weeks intervention is not enough. We had to extend our services with this client as the home needed more support. Behaviors became more complex, involving other co-residents. We believe that the quality of life for a person with dementia depends on the quality of the relationships he or she has with the care staff. Stigma and discrimination in supporting individuals with responsive behaviors and complex needs and/or mental illness. When the client first came into the home, we were greeted with, he doesn't belong here, he needs to go back, we don't have time for that, we can't deal with that kind of behavior. LTC staff, they're not feeling empowered, no confidence, and I heard many times, we're not miracle workers. But we need to understand that change takes time. We need both patience and reinforcement as a team to embrace any change.
So for the evidence-informed factors for success, open communication is very much needed. Share as much information as possible amongst the team, the staff, the families, and involve the family. Get to know the resident from a history's point. Get to know who he was before he came to long-term care. Person-centered and individualized approach. Everyone is unique and everyone is different. Collaboration at every level of the organization. So you're running from the frontline staff to housekeeping to dietary to the management. Have everyone involved in this person's care. Think creatively and out of the box. In this case, for example, John was someone that loved to do Sudoku, and they used to provide him the Metro. In our area, we do not have the Metro available. So the BSS team went to great lengths and actually went into the Toronto region, got the Metro for him and brought it in. Be proactive, engage as early as possible. Through this experience, we have learned that having the BSS team come in before the admission process is vital. So what I try to do, as I'm one of the persons that do the referrals to the BSS team for our home, is if I see a resident from the CCAC application coming in and there is history of some type of responsive behavior or there's some type of challenges, I do a referral beforehand to get the BSS team to come in before so we can start doing a specific care plan for this resident. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Very interesting, something that we can all, I'm sure, use at our homes. Also, it was great to hear again how important teamwork and observation is. So next, our next speaker is Colleen